One.
Hello, everyone. I'm Penny, and welcome to Reality. Thank you for joining us online. We ask that you please share this now on your Facebook page, as we want everyone to hear and be blessed by what the Lord is saying and teaching us through Scott. Scott is beginning a new study from the book called Changes That Heal by Henry Cloud. You do not need to purchase the book for this study. During Reality, please comment. We love hearing from you. Comment if you have questions, prayer requests, praises, and feel free to private message us as well, or you can email us or Scott at any time. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, and when you subscribe, there's no cost to you. It's free. We're trying to get 1,000 likes and subscriptions on our YouTube channel. This has all of Scott's teachings on it. God has something to say, especially to you, for you to hear, and there's a reason that you're here, and we're glad you are. Be encouraged as you hear God's word, and prepare your heart as we enter into His presence, as we praise Him with the Reality Worship team. This is my desire. Honor you, Lord, with all my heart. I worship you. I worship you. All I have within me, I give you praise. All that I adore is in you. Lord, I give you my heart, I give you my soul. I live for you alone. Every breath that I take, every moment I'm awake. Lord, have your way in me. Let's do that again. This is my desire. This is my desire. Honor you, Lord, with all my heart. I worship you. All I have within me, give you praise. All that I adore is in you. Lord, I give you my heart, give you my soul. Live for you alone. Every breath that I take, the moment I'm awake. Have your way. Lord, I give you my heart, I give you my soul. I live for you alone. Every breath that I take, every moment I'm awake. Lord, have your way in me. Lord, have your way in me. Lord, have your way in me.
out to fight. There's nothing greater than your love that holds my life. Your grace and mercy that has saved me by your blood, has swept away my shame, oh Lord. Your love is like fire, burns for all to see. My only desire, worship at your feet. This fire consume my life. Let your love take me deeper. Draw me closer to where you are. All I want is more of you. I'm surrendered to your love, forever humbled by the message of the cross. I stand abandoned in your presence and embrace. I'll never be the same, oh God. Your love is like fire, burns for all to see. My only desire, worship at your feet. This fire consume my life. Let your love take me deeper. Draw me closer where you are. All I want is more
Welcome, beloved, to Reality. Thank you for joining in with us tonight. We're so grateful to have you. We have just finished a long study of the letter to the Philippians, and we are looking towards in the fall to begin a series of Bible studies on the book of 1 Samuel. And we're going to take an in-depth look in that book for whatever season we get with it, and probably with some breaks here and there. But so in the meantime, it's about 6 weeks before summer's over and we get to September. The Reality team, we've been talking about what would be beneficial for you, what kind of teaching, what kind of sharing, what would be a blessing, a benefit. And it just so happened that in recent months, I've been referring a book to people, recommending a book to them. And in our discussions as a Reality team, I brought this book up, and then the idea began to be formed that maybe we could just do some teachings from this book. Now, the book is called Changes That Heal by Henry Cloud. It's an old book. It's been around for a while. But it is just a foundational book on making some fundamental changes that bring healing to your life. And so we just thought that we might try to offer some of the insights that are in this book as far as some teachings till we get to September, in other words, for the next 6 weeks. Now, I have never done this. This is a new thing for me. So this could turn out to be a beautiful disaster, and we end up, get down the road 2 or 3 weeks, and we all decide that Scott Latham should never do this again, or this could be something that is really a benefit to you guys, and that's really what we're hoping. So it's really an experiment to see how this might be beneficial and helpful. So. Now, the map that we're going to follow, just as some titles through this next 6 weeks, is going to sound something like this. Now, understand this is a little soft, and it can morph a little bit. The idea that if we need to punt, if the ship starts going down, or the plane starts losing altitude, then we'll need to do something else and be flexible about it. But here's loosely sort of the map of where we're headed. Tonight's going to be entitled Broken People Can Heal. And the idea here is we're trying to answer the question, what does it take to heal? What kind of ingredients do you need for healing to take place? Then next week, Todd is going to take some time and share his journey of healing, and share some touchstones, some of the things that I shared tonight is going to use to talk about how those were helpful to his healing. And then the next week after that is Healing People Can Make Healthier Connections. We're going to talk about bonding and boundaries there. Healing people can make healthier connections. And then healthier people can become more real. And then real people can become more mature. And finally, mature people can become more like Jesus. So let me go through those again. Broken people can heal. And then Todd's second thing that's going to happen, second teaching, is Todd's going to share his personal story. Third is healing people can make healthier connections. Fourth, healthier people can become more real. Number 5, real people can become more mature. And number 6, maturing people can become more like Jesus. So that's loosely sort of the map that we're going to follow. But for tonight, it's broken people can heal. What kind of ingredients? What does it take to heal? Now, before we get started too far, we need to stop and sort of look at and explore together so we're on the same page. What does it mean to heal, and what is the word brokenness? I mean, what are we talking about when we use that word? So healing, when I'm using the word healing, I'm not necessarily talking about physical healing. I think there's some overlap, but my view, the view that I'm really taking, the focus of that word for our discussions in this series is we're talking about healing in our person, like healing in our character, our attitudes, our mindsets. bringing healing to our addictions, to our fears, to our distorted thinking, bringing healing to our inability to have healthy relationships with other people, or our propensity to act in immature and childish ways. Bringing healing to that. It's bringing healing to the shame that's in our life that binds us and keeps us from being free, or bringing healing to the facades that we have built to hide us, even hide us from ourselves. So this is the idea of healing that is going to be in view and in focus. Now, what are we working with? What idea are we working with the word brokenness? Well, let me give you a working definition. Again, this is a working definition. It may morph in some ways as we move through the process, but this is it. We are created to be like Jesus. That's Romans 8:29. This is what we are created to be like. But because we want to run our own lives, and by the way, that's the definition of sin, the desire to run your own life. Sin is basically a declaration of independence from God in small or large measure. Essentially what I'm saying is that we are rebels at heart. Anyway, because we want to run our own lives, instead of letting God be the God of our life, we don't develop likeness of Jesus in vital parts of our person. And the result is we don't function as we were meant to function. This is brokenness. Now, sin is, I'm not talking about sin, I'm talking about what comes from sin, which is our brokenness. Now, without the ability to perform in some basic ways like Jesus, we literally become broken and more broken and more broken, unable to grow, unable to change, and to become really the healthy version of the image of God that we were meant to be. But if we were able to work on some key aspects of being like Jesus with the Holy Spirit, now understand that's crucial. There, in no way do I want you hearing me say that we can become like Jesus in our own efforts. No way. It's impossible. If we are able to work on some key aspects of being like Jesus in partnership with the Holy Spirit, this could bring healing to our brokenness. Now, before we get into those key aspects, what those might be, and we will get to those, but we won't tonight. But before we do that, we unpack some of those. What are some of those key aspects that we need to become like Jesus? We just want to try to answer the question of what is it going to take to heal our brokenness. In other words, once we identify the aspects of Jesus that we need to grow in, what will we need in order to grow? What will we need in order to change? What will we need in order to heal? Now, Dr. Cloud in his book suggests three things that we need. These are necessary for growth and healing. They are grace, time, and truth. Let me say it a different way. Grace, truth, and time. He tells this interesting story in the beginning of the book, just highlighting grace and truth. He tells the story of this alien named Beezy. And Beezy lives on a planet with an advanced culture, people, and they're bored. They've just developed and done everything. So they get together and talk about, well, what could we invent a new sport? Could we build a new amusement park? What's going to help us not be so bored? And so then they come up with the idea that what they're going to do is invent a god. That'll give us something to do on Sundays, they say. So anyway, they go about trying to create and produce this new god. But Beezy finally just admits, he says, listen, we're smarter than this. We know we're creating this God, so how could this really be a God that we could worship? So he suggests that they go find a God, and so he takes a trip to Earth. And so while he's on Earth, he visits all He visits churches and all religious institutions and just takes copious notes. And so then when he returns to his planet, he tells them, I have found a God. Not only have I found a God, but I've found two gods. So the first God is called grace. And the people that follow grace are very loving, very kind. They're very, very forgiving, very, very warm and welcoming. But there's a problem that I find with the people that follow grace. They don't really know where they're headed. They don't seem to have a sense of direction, and their lives seem to be fairly chaotic. Nice, but basically out of control. And then the other God that I discovered was that God's name is Truth. And the people who follow him are rule followers, very legalistic and very judgmental. They're very good at getting rid of bad things like lying and cheating and adultery and those sort of things. The problem is that they don't just get rid of those things, they get rid of the people who do those things as well. So there isn't any kind of kindness, there isn't any kind of forgiveness, there isn't any kind of warmth in them whatsoever. And so as Beasley gave his report, the people were just very discouraged. They didn't like the sounds of either one, so they just decided at that point just to try to build another amusement park. But finally, Beasley thought for a moment, and then he offered this idea. What if we could mix and put together a God of grace and truth? Well, that's the point that Dr. Cloud is trying to make, is that we need both of those together if we're going to find healing. Notice in these words from the Gospel of John, chapter 1, verse 14. The Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. This is talking about Jesus. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only Son, who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. So, what are we going to need in order to find healing? We're going to need grace and truth, and grace and truth put together. Where do we find that? We find it in Jesus. And we're going to talk more about grace and truth here in a minute, but just understand that there really isn't any true healing and growth without him. Because the ingredients that we need, grace and truth, the fullness of that is in him. Now there's a third element, time. We'll take some time to talk about that. But let's take some time to talk a little bit about what are we talking about when we're talking about grace, and what are we talking about when we're talking about truth. Let's just take some time with that. Frederick Buechner said that grace is something that you can never get. In other words, he's talking about grace is something you can't acquire. It can only be given. He goes on to say, there is no way to earn it or deserve it or bring it about any more than you can deserve the taste of raspberries and cream, or earn good looks or bring about your own birth. Grace is something that is freely given. Now, let me just walk around the grace just a little bit and just looking at it from different vantage points and see if we can just get some other facets and glimpses, just trying to round out our understanding of what grace is. Grace is unconditional love and acceptance. Grace is unbroken, uninterrupted, unearned, unrejecting relationship. Grace, this is maybe the best one that I've found. Grace is God's expression of his disposition of love towards unworthy creatures, expressed without any degree of obligation or requirement to do so. Now, let me pause on that one just a little bit. There's a distinction between love and grace here. Now, I think there's a lot of overlap between God's love and God's grace. But here, this definition makes a little bit of a distinction that God's disposition is love. His nature is love. But grace is the expression of that love when it's not deserved, when there's no obligation to do so, when there isn't any kind of requirement on him to express that love towards unworthy creatures. That's grace. Grace is God's unrelenting reaching out to us to be in relationship with Him. Now, for healing to take place, there has to be this kind of experience of grace where there's this safety to be my real self, where there's this acceptance to be who I really am, where I can bring all of myself without fear and present myself for healing. So there's grace, but then there also has to be truth, not just grace alone. There has to be truth as well. Now, what is truth? Well, besides the fact that I believe that truth is a person, to me, if we're going to talk about truth, then whatever we say, it's got to line up with Jesus. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. So whatever we say, it's got to line up with Him. Line up with the person of Jesus. But truth is what is real. Truth is what really is. If you just think about this, beloved, if you try to live in contradiction to what is real, essentially you become more and more insane. So, you see, being healthy, finding healing is something where you can't avoid truth. You can't get away from truth. To try and get away from truth while you're trying to change and heal, to grow, is like trying to prove a stick only has one end. It just doesn't make sense. Truth is the facts, the reality. Truth is the structure that determines what is real. It's the skeleton that gives shape to everything in the universe. See if you can follow me here on this statement. I have a hard time following myself on this statement, but just see if you can follow with me. A statement is true when it says what is. Or what is not. And a statement is false when it says what is, but really is not. Or when it says what is not, but really is. Okay, we just might as well shut down right there. Wow. Okay, but you understand what I'm trying to get at. I hope you understand what I'm trying to get at, is that truth is what is real. Now, the problem with truth is not forgiving. Truth is not merciful. It's not compassionate. And here's something else I've observed with grace and with truth. Often people will lean one way or the other. You have grace people, and then you have truth people. You have people who are very inviting and warm and very relational. And then you have people who are truth and justice is very, very important. What is accurate, what is right is very, very important. Sometimes they're very blunt. Sometimes they're very adamant about following the rules. And they don't mind challenging things when they think they're inaccurate or wrong. But here's what we've got to learn, beloved. Where brokenness is healed is in the mixture, the balance, the putting together of grace and truth. You see, grace without truth, it actually can become chaotic. It can foster a life that is very relational, but have a lack of responsibility and boundaries. And truth, then, without grace, becomes legalistic, judgmental. Life is reduced to rules, shoulds, and oughts. You only feel loved if you do what is right, and if you only do that correctly. It is only in the presence of truth and grace. And let me say it this way. This is what I really believe. It is only in the presence of God's truth and God's grace that we can heal and grow. And I think that's what Dr. Cloud is trying to say as well in his book. Only in the presence of God's truth. Not my truth, not your truth, not the culture's truth, God's truth and God's grace that we can heal and grow. Grace gives us acceptance. Truth gives us instruction. Or another way of saying it is, truth gives us direction. Grace gives us acceptance. It lets us know that we're safe, that it's safe enough to look at our ugly and deal with it. But truth gives us some instruction on what to do with it. How to learn how to truly live according to how life was meant to work. What is really real. Without grace, we hide who we really are, you see, beloved. And without truth, we don't know what to do with our real self, our real broken self. To heal and grow, we must have grace and truth. We have to have God's grace and God's truth together. Now, there's one more ingredient that Dr. Cloud talks about that is needed. There's a real threesome: grace, truth, and then time. We have to have time. Look with me at Luke chapter 13, verses 6 through 9. Luke chapter 13, starting at verse 6, going through verse 9. It's a parable that Jesus tells. And it says this: Then he told his parable. A man had a fig tree growing in his vineyard, and he went to look for fruit on it, but did not find any. So he said to the man who took care of the vineyard, For 3 years now I have been coming to look for fruit on this fig tree, and haven't found any. Cut it down. Why should it use up the soil? Sir, the man replied, leave it alone for 1 more year, and I'll dig around it and fertilize it. If it bears fruit next year, fine, and then, if not, cut it down. Now, the idea here is time. That the man is asking, Jesus is suggesting what will produce fruitfulness or growth is the need for time. In the story, we could say that digging around the tree, digging out the weeds and softening the dirt around the tree so that moisture can be absorbed could be compared to truth. This is getting rid of things that don't need to be there, like hardness and weeds and stuff like that. And fertilizing then could be compared to grace and love, which enriches the life of the tree. But notice there is a need for a third element. If the tree is going to be fruitful, there is the need for time. Beloved, when God moved Adam and Eve out of the Garden of Eden after they had sinned, He moved them out of eternal time into a realm of time where He could redeem what went wrong. This is called redemptive time. The time that we live in right now is called redemptive time. It's a temporary realm that exists for the purpose of redemption. Healthy growth and healing doesn't just take grace and truth together, but it also takes time mixed in with grace and truth. We become healthy as we move through different stages of development. Healthiness is growing through the stage that we're in and filling that stage and then moving to the next stage. An infant, like for example, can't handle solid food at first until her digestive system has had time to develop. The concrete foundation for a house, it needs time to harden. And I've been told that the hardest concrete is the slowest to dry and harden. But a concrete foundation for a house needs time to harden to bear the weight of the building. An apple tree needs time to mature before the limbs can carry the weight of its fruit. Things, must mature in one stage before they can go on to the next stage. Now, this is God's developmental process. He made this so. And it just takes time to move through each stage in a healthy way. children who have been forced to grow up too soon, where they've missed different aspects of childhood, different stages. They weren't allowed to really experience a stage of growing up. When they get to adulthood, they often will experience these gaps in their adulting that is because of missing some things that were necessary for their childhood. This is that developmental process that God has set into motion. It takes time to move through each stage, and to do so, to move through each stage is moving through growth in a healthy way. Our problem is that we want to rush the process. We want quick fixes for things. Now, I know most of you are familiar with the parable of the sower. Jesus tells the story of a farmer that's broadcasting his seed everywhere, and some of it lands beside the path, and then some lands on rocky soil, and some lands where there's already thorns and weeds and stuff like that, and then some lands on good soil. Now, the idea of landing on rocky soil, that idea is where Jesus warns us against fast growth that does not have any depth. If you want to look this up, it's Matthew 13, 5 and 6. He warns us against this quick growth with no depth of root, no firm hold with the root, will always be superficial and short-lived. Don't trust quick growth. Deep growth is what you want to look for, and deep growth is always slower. There's no proverb that says the longest distance between 2 points is the shortcut. So much truth. Real growth and real healing takes time, beloved. It takes grace, truth, and time. Now, here's an interesting thing to consider. Because all of time is available to God, past, present, and future, with Him and in Him, we can go back in time and address the brokenness of our past. That part of us in the past that keeps us from being fully mature and whole versions of ourselves. We can work through, the trust issues from infancy, or the boundary issues from young childhood, or the separation issues that were ours in adolescence, or forgiveness issues that we acquired as young adults. All of that can be worked on, but all of that will take time to do so, and it will take grace and truth. Now, you know where to find time. I don't think I need to tell you where to go and find time. I don't. It's kind of an unrealistic phrase to say, make time. No one makes time. But you know what I mean when I say that is that, for our healing, we need to probably make space in our busy schedules for God to be at work with us. And we need to be giving ourselves to Him in a way that we're allowing His grace to come to us and His truth to come to us. Where do you find His grace? Often where I find it is in the people that He's given to me in my life who love me and who give me second chances, who give me the benefit of the doubt, who love me no matter what, even when my ugly shows up. That's where I often find grace, community. And where I find truth, it's like I think human beings aren't born with a natural inclination for truth. I think we have to learn what truth sounds like. And I think that's why He gave us the Bible. It's, when God speaks to us, His voice always sounds like the truth. But we have to learn what that sounds like. And we're not going to learn that from Oprah. We're not going to learn that from Dr. Phil. We're going to need to learn that from a source that's reliable. And I think the Bible is what God gave to us to learn what His voice sounds like, what truth sounds like. It's there that we are able to know what is true, what is real, what God says is true and real. So I think in some respects what I'm saying is if you want changes that heal and you want to acquire the ingredients that are necessary for that, then giving ourselves to God for the experience of His grace and the knowledge of His truth, and taking time to do that, taking time to experience grace and truth among His people that He has put in our lives, these are the sources for that. Broken people can heal, but it takes grace, truth, and time to do so. Do you know what the fourth step is in AA? I know some of you do. You're spouting it off right now. You're saying it to me. It is this. For those of us who don't have that memorized, it is this. The fourth step is this. Make a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Whether you are struggling with an addiction or not, I think this is a smart thing for anyone to do periodically. Taking a fearless inventory of your life is important because it can tell you where changes are needing to be made. So, as I end tonight, let me encourage you to consider doing this, taking a fearless and searching inventory of your life, so that what begins to be apparent to you is places that are needing some change. And then let me ask you to ask these 3 questions. Where do I need grace? Where do I need truth? And where do I need to slow down or be patient with myself? Where do I need grace? And beloved, you know where to get grace. Where do I need truth? And you know where to go to get truth. Where do I need to slow down or be patient with myself? Where do you need to make space in your schedule for yourself? Changes that heal. Well, we've began the journey. Let's see how it goes. Be blessed, beloved. See you soon.
We're glad you joined us, and we hope you enjoyed Scott's first teaching from the book Changes That Heal. We want you to stay connected with us. Even though we are separated, we are connected spiritually. You can stay connected with us through our website, our YouTube, Instagram, online with our Facebook page, and also you can email us, Scott or us, anytime, and feel free to text us or call us if you need to. We also have a giving page now, and you can support Reality to help us continue to reach people all around the world with our online message from Scott. Tomorrow there will be a Zoom meeting at noon only, from noon to 1, with Pastor Todd Sons. We will have that link in the comments. We would love for you to join us as we discuss Scott's teaching. God bless each and every one of you.